This episode is brought to you by OneBodyOneLife.net. Get your medical marijuana card today. Visit online at OneBodyOneLife.net. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in here. It's JD here for Tales from a Dive Bar, and I have my close friend. You've known him from a previous podcast we did, Mr. David Vancil. Welcome back!
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So your new book came out, Raging into the Night.
Yep.
And you sent me an advance copy. I thank you for that, so I at least know what I'm talking about. And after reading the book, there's quite a few tales from a dive bar here. So let's start from the beginning, because I was trying to figure out, were you even old enough to pour drinks when this book starts?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, that's my first bar gig, second bar gig. I started bartending at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, and then bar backing, and then bartending over this place called Scruples, and then trying to fill in anywhere they would possibly take me as a bar back, and then work my way up.
Well, I like how it starts. Your grandpa was the one who more or less kicked you into starting this process, and you didn't just go from one island to another island to then LA. I mean, you go all across the world in just this very cool chronicle. And I feel like, I like the cover. It's got the whole like raging club look. And I know that you were bartending while that was probably going on in Hawaii.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's the vibe.
But I feel like you should be like, there should be a Fabio version of you standing there while there's damsels like grabbing at your legs and shit. Because there's a lot of, 50 Shades type stuff in here. I mean, I don't mean to reference, racy, but it gets a little hot and racy.
I like that you started off with the fact that of my grandfather, because that really motivated me. When I was 18, I had the opportunity to stay in a town in Downers, where I grew up, right here in Chicago, where my dad grew up and where my grandfather grew up. So it's like the third generation. I didn't see myself ever leaving Chicago. I loved it here. I still do, but I didn't see myself traveling to like all these different places in the world until I went. And then I was like, oh my God, there's a whole world out there.
I wish I would have done what you did when you were young. You had to be like, what, maybe 21 when all of this started? I mean, just getting into the bar scene. And what I liked about it is the story does start to where you had this job and then you lost it and you just happened to say, the hell with it, I'm going to go to a bar. And from there, that's the start. Everything from that point that goes on is like you became not only a bartender, but a liaison for Hawaii for quite a few patrons and people that vacationed, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's crazy how things happen. Sometimes things present themselves to you at a certain time in your life, and you're so close to them, you can't see the benefit of it.
Yeah.
And I never saw myself leaving Hawaii. You were good friends with Haidar, and like we were there, best friends. We were having the time of our lives. I'm bartending in a cool club. Why would I leave ever? But then just randomly, not to ruin anything in the book, but some guy made some promises, which a lot of people do. Everybody's got tons of money and wants to take care of you in the bar, but he was like, hey, come to Japan, I'll take care of you. And I wanted to go anyways to see friends.
That's what I was going to say. I was thinking, you talk about hypnotherapy in our previous podcast, and I think you were already onto something there, even at that young of an age, to where you were already learning how to do stuff that people in a very small town like this would completely never understand unless they actually got on a plane, flew out, and did it. But yeah, I love your stories there in Japan. We'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah.
You went there and you did some stuff, and then you came back. You bounced around quite a bit, and I noticed there was a gap too of time, and I won't mention it because I know it's dealing with it seems like relationship stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And no one thinks about that when you're a young kid. If I were a young kid as a bartender in Hawaii, I would have been slain. I'd have just as low as a comprehension of the English language, like you had said in the prior podcast, but I would have definitely been looking for any way or in to just talk to girls. And what better way to do that than having a bartender gig?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was in love with the culture, man. You go to Japan and there's no tipping. So if you're going to bartend in Japan, you got to really love it. So I was on a study abroad program, and that's a little bit in the book too, but not so much about, being in Roppongi. I fell in love with this place called Gas Panic, which is the same thing as Scruples. I fell in love with Scruples, and I was like, I want to work there, and then I ended up working there. I fell in love with the Gas Panic in the middle of Tokyo because it's in Roppongi. The bartenders are on top of the bar. They're breathing fire. They're in costumes. There's so many people in the club, but they're just bouncing up and down, mass human contact, and it's not really any dancing. It's just like very hedonistic craziness.
It is wild.
And then I end up bartending at that place a couple of years later.
Yeah, well, you're a foodie, it seemed like, because you're always explaining dates that you go out on and things that were happening. And you always have such a great description of everything you guys were doing, whether it's, at a bar or a club or just walking out in the wilderness. And that's one thing I think we all forget to understand about even like a place that's as beautiful as Hawaii. Just walking in the sand is probably paradise in and of itself.
Isn't it? When you feel the sand between your toes and the water, come in very rhythmically, even just watching sunrise, sunset. Or in Chicago, listen to cardinals or robins. Like you don't think about that until you don't hear it anymore. In Hawaii, they had these little things called zebra. They're zebra. They're not pigeons. They're doves. They're zebra doves. But man, there's this very particular sound that comes up in the morning. It's very beautiful. And in Tokyo, it's the crows. Man, they laugh at you.
Crows in Tokyo.
Yeah, huge, biggest crows have you ever seen. Super smart. But yeah, adventures, a lot of different places. And then we went to L.A. And of course in Hollywood, straight to Hollywood. I literally picked, the girl I was dating at the time. I was like, "Hey, let's go." And we literally closed our eyes and put our finger on a map, and it just landed on Hollywood. So that's where we ended.
That's where you ended up. It seemed like the scene definitely changed from where when you were in Hawaii, you're having tourists and you're having dumb idiots that I guess are in college, like myself at that time. I would have been going out there and making a fool of myself. But then you go to LA and it seems like everything definitely changed.
It's a different scene.
Culture shock, yeah.
Culture shock, yeah. I mean, Hawaii was a culture shock when I got there. It's a very different thing being, not like everyone on the island or from a different place. Yeah, LA, very West Coast, coming from the Midwest. You have to adjust, your way of thinking, your way of talking to people, even when they, introduce themselves or ask you to get together. Sometimes they're just being cordial. In the Midwest, it's a little different. Yeah. Someone says they'll see you on Friday at 4. It means I'll see you on Friday at 4.
It's a plan set, yeah. I mean, it seems like even if your plans fall through in Hawaii, you're like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. All right, I'm in Hawaii at that point.
That's the way I looked at it. And when I heard people talking about being on the rock and it being like a negative thing, I was like, how can you call it a rock? It's paradise.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the way you describe the places you were at, it's like, I wish as a young kid I would have done that. It's the experience in and of itself. The book captures all of that. The one thing in particular that captured me is the fact that I had to ask, so how much French do you know?
J'ai parlé très bon français. A little bit, not much. But yeah, that was one hell of a story.
Exactly. If you're going to buy the book, Raging into the Night by David Vancil, you need to experience it just for that small chapter about his escapade as he's bartending and meeting a French lady and all of the intense. I didn't realize it. I need to pick up a French lady at some point and try that out after reading that story.
Oh man,
it's funny. It's great. It's got a lot of humor, and it's also passionate for the ladies. It's not just, and this is something that I look at when I think of a title like Raging into the Night. As we rage into this podcast and do another shot or two, it brings on so many different emotions and experiences, even with the stories you tell in this book, that it's not just some sophomoric thing. It is very passionate. Like, you are a very passionate guy when you describe some of the escapades you've had in here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
You should write a dating novel.
When I at the bar, you talk to people. I love talking to people. To me, that's one of my favorite things as a bartender, getting to know people. And I think that there's just a lot of stories in there. I try not to be vulgar, per se. We're not talking about like hedonism, like craziness and just being all obscene. But I think all of us have had some stories of, hey, and I kept hearing customers say, you need to write this stuff down. I'm sure other people would like to hear these stories. So I tried to throw a little, about what I was learning in the time, because we all know, you can't have just all good times, because eventually, you hit a low rock bottom, you bounce back up, you hit rock bottom, you come back up. And I try to put it all in there so you can see both the good and the bad that comes with it. But man, even the bad teaches us lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that I love and respect about you is that when you are down, you explain a lot of the stuff you experienced, but it didn't stop you from then getting out there and telling yourself you have to connect with people and keep experiencing. You can't just sit in a hole and say, okay, I'm done, I quit. And that's what I love and respect about you. It's something that I see in the mentality of these young 20-somethings that doesn't exist anymore. They feel entitled. They feel like, oh, I should be giving this. And at no point do you ever convey that in your book. You throw it down to where we get to go ahead and put our feet in your shoes. And I absolutely appreciate and respect it, because there's a lot of vulnerability that comes with that. I mean, that's what stops me from even thinking about writing a book. I would love to write a book of just, you have like at least 5 dive bar good stories right there that we could do. You could share each one after everyone's bought this book, mind you, okay? After everyone's bought this fucking book on Amazon or right through the site. We'll also have it at talesfromthedivebar.com. But more importantly, we should share these or have you do an audiobook. My thought was we should have you record your own voice reading this book.
Not a bad idea. And if anyone buys it and they're up at Nell's, of course I'm going to sign that for you, because they're probably
absolutely
going to be up there.
You got to sign it. Like, I don't have anything famous really signed like that book-wise, so that'd be cool. But what would be some of the things that you would write in there other than just your name?
I don't know, man. One of my favorite writers is Jack Kerouac, and I always think like, man, what if I had him sign my book? Like, what would I be happy that, even if it was just very trite, right to the point, if he wrote it for me, what I would be happy about. So just don't hit me up with too many beers in me.
Dear David, thanks for breakfast.
Thanks for
Signed,
breakfast.
Jack.
Yeah. No.
You had mentioned Jack Kerouac in the previous podcast, too. So, like, what would be a good highlight or a plug? Like, if somebody were to first get into Jack Kerouac, what would be the first reading that you would recommend they
on
dive
the road
into?
for sure. Yeah,
The Road.
That I feel very in kin with him, and Jack Kerouac, William Moss Burroughs. These are people that the Beat generation. It's a whole nother generation to go, but there's a bunch of people who are disillusioned with the things that were going on in America, and they were basically saying like, the white picket fence ain't for me. Maybe I want to go travel and see the world. So what does it look like? What does it feel like? What is it experience like when you go to other countries or don't do what everybody else does?
So have you always had that mentality where less is more, to where you don't have to worry about carrying stuff?
Oh yeah, everything but books, man. I tell you what, I've tried. Usually about every 2-3 years I move, so I try to like keep things to a bare minimum. But it's just the books. I find myself always carrying a lot of books.
So we're doing this on a school night. So are you still doing the corporate thing or whatever? I'm doing it too, but how's that going, I guess?
Right now I am working at a corporate bar. I don't want to throw their name out there.
No.
And then I'm leaving on Friday for London for 10 days. So it's still in travel and I'm doing my thing. I find it good to be in corporate at this point in my life, because I'm also getting my bachelor's degree in a few months. For fine arts, so trying to stay positive, get things done.
You're gonna meet that French woman in London. That
I wish. Maybe we can meet that London lady.
There you go. But what are your plans in London?
Actually, I'm going to the Honors College of UIC, and I am going to be studying pop art and op art, so optical art. And then, man, it was not something I thought I would be terribly interested in, but. Art, you talked about, being a foodie. I think I just like to indulge in like the good things in life. To me, good friends, good moments, good food, good learning opportunities or experiences. Like these are like the sweet spots in life. And I like to have as many as I can.
trying to challenge the intellect, so to speak. You do that very well in this book, Raging into the Night with David William Vancil. You guys owe it to yourself to buy this book. It's hilarious. It's great. It's also passionate. And like I said, on top of being a foodie and a bartender, he explains some really cool libations in there. I guess that's what I should ask you. What is your favorite libation at that time when you were writing that book? Or not writing, but experiencing it, because you said it sometimes takes 10 years for you to get to where you're writing stuff like that, and that took well over 10 years to put out this book.
Yeah, I was double major at UIC, creative writing and fine art, sculpture and photography. But man, some of these, I complete my writing style now is completely different than what it was 10 years ago. So some of the stories, it was hard not to bring them up to par, but not completely change the feeling. And I think you'll get that, especially with the first chapter. I want you to push through the first chapter because it's not my favorite. But the second chapter, the one with one of my brother's birthdays with a little twist.
Within like the first 10 pages, I was giggling. There is some good giggle moments right from the get-go where I was like, okay, and I was hooked. And after that, I look at it, and at least my experience in reading the book is you see the evolution of what you experienced and what you were able to do from when you became just learning learning how to bar back, to then all of a sudden you're seeing some crazy things with flamethrowers on top of the bar while you're in Thailand or whatever. Yeah. But the cool, fun part about that is, like you say, it's the experience of even trying that. Most people won't even go out to make that experience. We get very comfortable and content living here in the suburbs outside of whatever city we live in. Sure. And you had mentioned you always move 2 years. Like, is that just a thing? Do you force yourself to do that, or now are you settling in a little more?
Well, yeah, my sister's all worried I'm going to take off to Miami, and I'm not quite sure I might not.
Oh,
but
Miami.
I don't know if you remember, but when we were in our 20s, Tom Cruise's movie Cocktail had come out, right before then. Like, these are things that inspired me, I saw somebody that was really passionate about what they did. And so when I saw that, I was like, holy cow. I was like, I didn't even think I could do that, And then when you see other bartenders that are super passionate, that are really good what they do, like, man, I just kept going to all these bars and like meeting these characters, like true characters, like just out of a story. And so I got to meet them, hopefully a little of them soaked into me. So yeah, there's a ton of that in the book, and I hope, people take the time to take a look and, enjoy it.
I love it. And with that, we're going to take a short break. We're going to get a couple shots in us, and we will be right back. Hey, what's up? It's JD, and One Body, One Life established their clinic as an alternative health and wellness cannabis clinic to help their patients heal and reduce their chronic medical symptoms in a natural way using cannabis as their medicine. If you experience headaches, migraines, aches and pains, and inflammation, contact One Body, One Life today. Maybe you have stomach issues related to nervousness, stress, anxiety, PTSD, or depression. No matter how intense or minor your symptoms are, you may qualify. If you have trouble sleeping at night, experience restlessness, the doctors at One Body, One Life can help get your provisional medical cannabis card in as little as 24 hours. I use them, and the process was simple. To see a list of qualifying medical conditions, go to onebodyoneLife.net. One Body, One Life conducts telemedicine patient evaluations throughout the entire state of Illinois. Cannabis is intended for adults 21 and over and can impair cognition that may be habit-forming. Do not operate heavy machinery or a motor vehicle while under the influence of cannabis. Void in states where prohibited, and may carry significant penalties based on jurisdictions or under federal law for the time being. All right, just before we left, we were talking about Dave Vancil's Raging into the Night, which I feel like should be more like romancing into the night, because, yeah, you were definitely hooking up with a lot of chicks in this book. But
I don't know. I think, yeah, it has some romance in there, but I don't think it's all about romance. I think it's more about travel and human connection. And yeah, I mean, we connect sometimes, sometimes it gets intimate.
We also brushed up a little bit about you going to London through UIC. Mm-hmm. You are going through the honors program, so obviously congratulations.
I appreciate
you jumped in through that.
Thank you.
And in the book, you have photos in there, and you credit the artist. But I was wondering, like, do you know these folks, or you just put them in there? it wasn't your photography. You
I
chose
know.
another artist to
I
put
know.
into the book.
I did that on purpose because photography is so important to me. You know what I mean? It's like the pictures I've taken as I've traveled. Man, they're sitting on my wall right now. They're in Downers Grove Library, my town where I grew up, and I'm the featured artist this month. And then I have the book signing on the 28th of March this month. So if you guys want to come get a book, I'll have books there that night. You can talk and shoot the shit. But yeah, I wanted to feature that because I know, you don't need pictures for a book. Sometimes there's this image that if a book has pictures, that it's a child's book. But we're adults, and as an
Yeah.
adult, I have a real appreciation for myself and other people's photography. So I wanted to give an opportunity for people that nobody knows. So if one more person can get a grasp of an artist that was unknown, that would be great for me. I did have some pictures, but a lot of them are like, some of them are shady, some of them are like risque.
You're like, oh, I better not put that in the book. That got to wait for a statute of limitations or something to end on that one.
I think like because bartenders are such a social entity, like a therapist, like a judge. To me, if I would have thrown some of those pictures like with any type of indecency, well, then it's almost like I am violating some form of the secrecy of the nighttime.
Well, yeah, speaking of which, when you're a bartender, your schedule starts 8, 9, 10 o'clock and you go until 5 a.m. I mean, I would assume it's even possibly later there in Hawaii and all the other Japan, just because it's a whole different world. They're not worried so much about going to work as much as it's about just living for the night. How long did it take for you to go from getting into that schedule where you would be raging into the night to where then you switched over and said, all right, I'm going to try and do a 9 to 5 or a 10 to 6 or 7 or whatever it is now?
Well, I tell you what, as a 21-year-old bartender and a 45-year-old bartender, there's completely two different priorities. And then I was just trying to like have the experience, and like do shit that no one's done or that I haven't done, And then, at a certain point, you want to have a relationship,
Yeah, yeah.
And then in Japan, in a lot of places, there's no such thing as last call. So they have this saying that "okakusama mo kami-sama," which means that if someone comes in, you treat them as if it's the divinity that's walking in front of you. So how would you treat, Jesus if he sat down at your bar, Or how would you treat someone's mother if they sat at the bar? Would you just be like, it's last call, pay,
What
leave?
would be the late night food you'd eat in Japan around 4 or 5 in the morning? Well, they
ramen.
should have called ramen
Oh,
noodles.
it's
all
ramen. Yeah,
ramen?
we all go to the little ramen places afterwards. You're drinking beers. In Hawaii, there's this great place. It's a Korean place where the mama-san comes out and they serve cold soup. It's really just beer in a soup container.
Beer and soup?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh no, they cook like full-on meat for you. Mama-san, they stay open late, but
That's wild.
yeah, whole
Like-
different worlds.
So you mentioned, because we were talking a little bit when we were in the break, that you might leave and go to Miami for a while at some
Miami's
point. I want to go with you. I got some connections. I think
All
we
right.
can do this. We could have some fun
Love
in
it.
Brickell. We can get down there. But when's the last time you've been down there?
1 month ago. And then you said it a second ago, like Miami starts late. Like it doesn't even start popping off in Miami till like 1, 12, 1. But
Rooftops and everything are like just people sitting in the pool and sun until about 5 or 6. Then they get ready and shower, and then they're eating around like 8:30, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And we were Brickell, my cousin Johnny's down there. He's got a futon. We'll throw you on it.
I got it.
I'll buy a bunch of booze. You can go ahead and mix us the drinks, and then
know.
pick up the chicks for us because, well, he's married and I'm pretty much close to it. It feels like sometimes.
I'll be your private bartender.
Yes, we need a private bartender / liaison for Miami. Have you bartended in Miami at all, or?
I haven't. I have bartended in many different places, Japan, Hawaii, California, in Hollywood, Chicago here. I got to bartend in Mexico the last time I was down there. I met this, there is a story about it in the book.
There is, yes.
But yeah.
Pretty good time.
Actually, I don't talk about it, but I met this gangster, this ex-gangster, he told me. He was telling me about all the times he'd been stabbed, but he don't live that life no more. And then he took me out all night. He took me to all these cool places. And man, I just had an amazing time. But he took me to this bar, and he told the guy who was an amazing bartender, got a whistle. He's like doing crazy flair. I can't do flair. I can throw him. I just can't catch him.
Yeah.
So I got this guy. He's introducing me, and he's like, "Oh, he's from California. He's a bartender from Hollywood." He goes, and then as I'm standing there, these girls come up. It's the second time they come up, and I might not remember everybody's names, but I remember their drinks usually.
Yeah.
For years sometimes. So these girls, the last time they came up, it was like a Corona and a gin and tonic, and so I just looked at him. I go, "Corona and gin and tonic," and he looks at me. He goes, "Yeah, you want to do my job?" And yeah. I was like, "I do." And he let me come behind the bar and bartend for a little while. It's crazy.
You
it was
mentioned
a great
that,
experience.
yeah. That in the previous podcast, it's weird how we remember little things like just, oh, I don't know your name, but I know that this is what you drink. You know, for me as a DJ, I don't know what your name is, but I can remember the stupid song that you wanted me to play. It's weird how it connects like that, regardless of the time or the mileage that goes through from, like you said, being down in Mexico, from Hollywood, from Hawaii, from Japan, well, you know what? You guys got to all read this book, all right? Because the reality is this is just a very short chronicle of multiple tales in a dive bar, and it's known as Raging into the Night by David William Vancil, and you all need to pick it up on Amazon. And is there any other place they should pick it up at? And I mean, pick it up in person. Give this guy like $20, buy him a drink, have him autograph the book for you. We're going to try to figure out what he would write in the book for you. We're working on that.
Try to keep it personal.
But yes, we will have some fun. It'll say something like, "Dear new purchaser, thanks for breakfast. Sincerely, David." We'll figure it all out for you guys.
We'll keep it simple. Simple and right to the point, but from the heart.
And with all of that, I think we covered the whole book. I'm looking forward to the next book that you're going to write. I mean, how long do you think it's going to take for that one? You've already written the other one, the previous one, which was Martyr
of the American Night.
Of the American Nightmare, yes. I got to still read that. I'm an idiot. I
it's
told
an
you
anthology.
I'd do it.
So honestly, I don't think it's for everybody. It's for some people. It's short stories and poetry. And you either love poetry or you hate it.
Yeah.
But there's 2 poems that I put in this book. And I put them in there because they were really beautiful. And then one of my good friends just recently passed. And then I put that at the end of the night. Rich Gonzalez, just an amazing guy and just died way too young. And then O'Connor, my good friend, Michelle O'Connor. So and my father 2 years ago. So I've never had people die in my life. And just in the last couple of years, I've lost some people. But I don't think it's like a terrible thing either, because it's part of the cycle. And I feel like they're watching over us, and like they're in a better place probably. And they could have been suffering here with us.
Yeah.
So to me, life here is to be experienced. And then when they're gone, they're gone. But anyways, long story short,
No, make it long. Make it long.
I wanted to dedicate this book. And I hate it when people have this great, huge foreword. No one wants to hear about all this stuff in the foreword. But I threw that at the end, and I threw those 2 poems in there because those are 2 poems that I read, and I was like, wow, they kind of hit me. And so to me, that's great writing. When you can feel what the person is trying to convey.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us on Tales from a Dive Bar, David. Raging into the Night, Stories from the Underground. You can purchase it now at Amazon, or if you see David, buy it from him directly and hook it up, and he will autograph it. Or better yet, if you check out our website, talesfromadivebar.com, and you reach out to me, we might be able to hook you up with a semi-complimentary copy. You're going to at least have to buy him a drink or a cup of coffee.
I love it. Well, maybe we can work out a deal too. A couple of people that get it. And I'll buy him a drink when I see him and sign the book.
And with that, we want to thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. We're going to have you on another one for sure, without a doubt.
That.
Thank you guys so much. Take care. Get swifty. Get drunk. Get laid. Keep chasing the night. It's Tales from a Dive Bar.